Hi, I'm Andy Oberlin. This is Home Sweet Home. For today, we're going to be working on this old door. You can see it's a pretty nice door, glass, it's all solid wood, but it needs a little bit of a facelift. What we're going to do is we're going to make it look more like this. Just give it some depth and kind of preserve the rustic feel of the door. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. Come on along. The first thing we're going to do is clean up the windows and stuff so that we can put down some tape and paint it. Our tape won't stick to the dirty glass, so just give it a quick once over. Doesn't need to be too perfect. It's just enough so that tape will stick. I pulled this out of a barn, so it has all kinds of old crud on it. So now essentially I'm going to take some paper towels and some painter's tape and tape up each one of these windows. This is a bit of a tedious process of just repeating the same thing over and over. So I'll just kind of do one here, and then we'll come back when I have it all taped up. I found when I did the other side that if I use these paper towels, they have to kind of select a size. I can just kind of lay two of them in there, overlapping. And then if I just tape the ends, it gives me a pretty nice custom fit. I don't really mind if a little bit of the spray paint gets along the edge, because you just clean it up with a razor blade. You just don't want to have that paint all over every one of these pieces of glass. So essentially here I have one that I've just covered the glass, and then I'm going to go ahead and just do all the rest of these and trim off the tape, and then we'll come back and we'll start doing our sanding and our spray painting. Alright, here we can see we got our paper towels on there, taped on there. I could spend more time detailing these little corners and edges, but really, once we take all this stuff off, we'll be able to scrape whatever little paint gets on there. This is just a matter of keeping this whole piece of glass from getting covered. Point. Usually take a piece of sandpaper hit some of these areas. There's a little bit of fuzz on there. Right here's a little bit of paint or something. Clean that off of there. This door will get sanded, so it's just a matter of looking in this grid. Just doing a little bit of touch-ups, and then our next step is the spray paint. I've been using this Krylon Fusion all-in-one paint and primer. This one's a satin black. It does a real nice trick for this. I'm just walking along here, letting the paint do its job. You're going to have to do multiple coats of this. I did shake this up ahead of time, so you do got to give these cans a good shake, especially when they're fresh. Get all that stuff mixed together. The reason that I'm painting these like this with the spray paint is it's really tough to scrape and to stain all these little pieces. But by doing this, it gives you this really kind of cool look without having to do all that extra work. And we don't mind if we go out onto the door here, because that stuff's going to get sanded too. Once I have all that pretty well coated, I can certainly come back and do a second coat if need be. I kind of go, and I like to just paint the edge of the door black as well, and you'll see that'll turn out pretty good when we get to the end. So I'm really not trying to spray directly onto these rails. I'm kind of just letting the paint get on there however it wants to, without really trying to coat that. And what it does, it adds this nice shadow area. And when we stain that, it's going to really pop. Okay, that looks pretty good for now. And, you know, I'm spray painting inside, but I do have a vent up there. So, you know, I'm going to get out of here for a little while and let this dry, let the air clear. Certainly you wouldn't want to do this in your house. You want to make sure it's outside somewhere where you get some airflow going, cross ventilation. So when I come back, we should be ready to pull all this stuff off and do some sanding. Okay, so I let our paint dry, and you can see here I painted it pretty thoroughly. But now I kind of let this cure overnight, and you can see still some of the wood coming through, and that's going to help us for our finished look. So now basically I'm just going to leave the paper towels in place, and I'm going to get my random orbital, my sander here, and I'm using pretty coarse grit. It'll get gummed up and I'll probably have to switch the paper a couple of times, but we'll just kind of give this a once over sand, and then we'll clean it up, and then it's time to put some finish on it, and it's going to have a really cool look. Definitely want to wear a good quality dust mask doing this stuff. It can, because you're sanding spray paint and wood, so you just want to make sure you put one of these on. As you can see, it's starting to really take that black off of there. And leaving it overnight, it really isn't clogging up that sheet. Sometimes if you push this process and that paint hasn't had time to set up, it'll just clog this stuff up. So I'm going to do a little more, and then we should be pretty close to ready to stain. So at this point, you see I've been sanding for a few minutes, and it's really looking good. I did have a spot up here that tore some wood out, and you see I'm just hitting these edges real aggressively with the sander. All of that is going to make this look great. So I do want to switch out this paper for something a little a little lighter grit. But I also like to take that burnt piece of sandpaper and come around and break all of these edges. Because sanding that down is making a pretty sharp wood edge there. And I don't want that. I want everything on here to be rounded and buttery soft. You don't want to feel like you're going to cut your finger on it. And it's okay to touch down here where you painted. I'll actually drag that along, and it gives it a really nice distressed look. And if you just keep moving along without worrying about it too much, it gives it a really nice natural look, as if it's always looked this way. You can see there's a little distress here. It'll look good once we put our finish on there. Here you can see I'm just taking that, running it back and forth until we get rid of all these little burrs. Just a little in the corners. Like I said, you see I'm taking a little bit of the black off here, but once we put the stain on here, it's going to look amazing, you'll see. Now, each one of these steps is really simple. It's just tedious. This right here is the most important step. Rounding those edges over and smoothing them out, that makes all the difference. Our eyes don't like to see sharp edges. I know this really looks like a mess right now. In every project there's a stage where it just looks like a total disaster. I think that's probably the point where people usually give up and throw in the towel and say, hey, I guess I couldn't do this. But this is the point in the project when it looks like everything looks like crap. You gotta just keep pushing through a little bit. I'm so bored of doing this already, but I know I only got 2 more, and it's gonna look amazing. If you can get excited about how it's gonna look, it really helps drive that forward. All right, there, it's looking pretty good. That's what we want right there. Looking really good. Alright, I really like the way that's looking. Pretty much at this point, all I gotta do is take all these paper towels and little pieces of tape off, wipe it down, blow it down, get rid of all the dust, and then we'll be ready to put on the finish. So I'll get this stuff taken care of, and then we'll get on that finish. Okay, we got that all cleaned up. Now we're ready to start putting some stain on here and making it look beautiful. So this is the stuff that I like to use here. Maybe this one's a little clearer. It's just amber shellac. This stuff's really forgiving. It's good for indoor work. You don't really want to use that on outdoor stuff because if it gets wet, it'll stain white. But so I take and I mix a little bit up in a can. I actually kind of like to let this stuff get old, and some of the alcohol will evaporate and it'll make it just thicker and be a little darker. And I also take some red mahogany stain and I dribble a little in there. Now they don't necessarily mix, you have to keep stirring it, but it gives it a really nice look to the wood. It makes it look like an old lacquer, and it's really cool. You can use it for all kinds of stuff. I use these little chip brushes for this type of thing, and this brush is probably 6 months old. It's been used over and over again, so and this wood's going to be pretty thirsty, so I just go ahead and put a nice coat on there. It'll probably absorb it down in, and we're going to have to do another coat. But you can see that already it just gives it this kind of a beautiful look. Like I said, this stuff is very forgiving, so like there was some dust on there that I just blew off. I just go right over it. 'Cause it's not gonna make it stick to it. I can just wipe it off before my next coat. And it really doesn't, it gives it that look like it's been around for a long, long time. All that stuff kind of contributes to it. And you can see I'm just putting a little bit on these stiles. I don't want too much on there. Mostly just trying to keep it off the glass. And if I miss any spots, I don't have to worry about it. I'm going to come back and do a second coat. Because this thirsty old wood will just soak this stuff right up. The nice thing about this shellac is that it dries pretty quickly. It's an alcohol-based finish. And so instead of having to wait 5 or 6 hours, this thing will be ready to recoat in an hour. You can see here when you go over those stiles and you just nice and easy and gentle on those, and all of a sudden it just starts looking like it's always been this way. This is the kind of stuff you put it in your house and it becomes, it's not just a door, it's an art piece. It's something that you can admire, and it'll catch your eye from time to time, like, man, that is a really good looking door. And that's a little bit of the magic of having special things like this in your home. Is that every once in a while you'll catch it in your eye and think, wow, I remember doing that. I remember taking that old door that I found and making it into this beautiful piece of art. And so there you go. You can see that's beautiful. So I'm gonna let this sit, let it dry. I'll give it another coat, and then we'll just come back and finish up. Well, as you can see, our door is done. I put a second coat of our shellac mix on there, and it really brought the richness of the wood out. You can see little areas here where our spray paint stayed in the grain of the wood, and this is what gives it that really nice kind of rustic look. And it's just a simple way to take a nice door that really just didn't have a great finish on it and make it look like a really elegant antique piece. So really all that is left to do here, find some hardware for it, some hinges and a new handle, and clean the windows, clean the glass really thoroughly. And as always with every project, I'm sure there will be a couple of touch-ups. And the beauty is, like, I can see a little stuff in here. you just take a Sharpie marker for your black, and you can just touch that up. Just like that, and it fades into the background. So like I said, this way of doing things, it's very forgiving. So I think we're good on this project until I'm ready to install it in the office. So this is Home Sweet Home, and for today, I think this project is done. I'm Andy Alberlin. Thanks for coming along with me.